Hello all and welcome to Rathod's IAS and welcome back to Anthropology series. So we are starting this topic 1.1, that is meaning, scope and development of anthropology. So in last lecture we said about only this meaning, correct? So now in this video we are going to talk about the scope of anthropology and approaches of anthropology and different branches, and we are going to deal with 4 different branches of anthropology along with the scope separately. So now let us try to see the scope. So actually, first of all, we need to know why for the civil servants learning anthropology is important. So as a civil servant, you will be coming across the society, okay? So you will be coming across the society, and as a civil servant, you need to understand. You need to understand the perspective of society as well. So first of all, you have to understand what are the problems of this society. And along with the problems, you have to know about what are the issues you are facing and how to solve those issues. And you have to also focus on how they are protecting, how the people they are protecting their society, say their culture, and you have to understand even social integrity. So as a civil servant, yes, you have to play an important role in understanding the perspective of people, that is understand the perspective of society, and also you have to understand the problems which are prevalent in the society, and you have to deal with the issues you are facing, and you have to come up with the problems. So here anthropology is very important aspect for a civil servant. And now let us try to see the scope. So in this scope, we need to know about 2 important things, that is physical anthropology and cultural anthropology. So here in this physical anthropology, we are dealing with just body physique. We are dealing with body physique. So in this physical anthropology, again, we will be going to study about the 4 important things. That will be our human biology, human evolution, human variation, and human genetics. Okay, first let us try to complete this physical anthropology, and later on we are going towards this cultural anthropology. So in physical anthropology, the first important thing you need to know about human biology, and you have to know about human evolution. Next one is human variation, and fourth one is human genetics. So what we are going to study in this human biology? So we are going to understand man's place in animal kingdom. In your syllabus, you have to know about phylogenetic status of man. So you have to know about where does man exactly present in this animal kingdom. So where is the place of man in animal kingdom? And we also need to know about relation of man with primates. So what are these primates? Primates means nothing but monkeys, apes, gorillas. So all these comes under this class or this order of primates, right? So in this human biology, we are going to understand the man's place in this animal kingdom, and we are also going to study what is the relationship between man and primates. And next one is human evolution. So in this human evolution, we need to know about how human being got evolved from these primates, and we need to understand what are the geological evidences and even paleontological evidences. Yes, you and me, everyone knows that human beings, they evolved from the apes. So what are the evidences which show that humans, they evolved from the apes, right? So we need geological evidences and we need some paleontological evidences. And this human evolution also, we will be going to see different stages, right? So we have Ramapithecus, we have Australopithecus, we have Narmada men. Okay, so in this evolution from apes to modern man, so there were number of different stages that we got. For example, Neanderthalensis, for example, Homo erectus. So we need to know exact time. So how humans they evolved from these apes, right? So here we need to also focus on age estimation. So during which time period, so which form of human being had evolved. So this is about this human evolution. And next one is human variation. So here you have to know difference between variation and evolution. So there is a lot of difference between variation and evolution. Yes, you need to know that. So what is a variation? Variation in simple terms, it is changes. It is the changes that occurs with time. So whenever there are changes that are occurring with the time, that is called as variation. That means we can talk about differences here in short. For example, difference between apes and Neanderthals, difference between Neanderthals and Homo erectus, difference between Homo erectus and this Homo sapiens sapiens. So here variation means just we are talking about variation. What are the differences? So apart from this variations, yes, for example, if you take a group of people, so let us consider this as a group 1 and this as a group 2. So between this group also there are number of variation. So there will be sometimes no resemblance between this one group to another group. For example, if you take tribes in India, tribes in Central India, for example, and if you are taking tribes in this Andaman and Nicobar, so we do not see any resemblances. Okay, even though they are scheduled tribes, so they do not have proper resemblances. So these differences are called as, in short, variations. And what is the meaning of this evolution? So evolution is nothing but it is a complete deformation. It is complete deformation. For example, if you compare with the apes and modern man, so we do not compare them. So completely apes are very much different from these modern humans. So there is a complete deformation that we can see. And here, due to this complete deformation in this evolution, we can get new form. Okay, we can get entirely new form in this evolution. So this is difference between this evolution and human variation. So here we are going to study human variation. So in this human variation, we are going to study so how one group is different from other. So why they are not resembling. So earlier there is a huge resemblance that is mainly seen, right? So now what happened due to this cultural contact? So people they are coming into contact with the main society, and what happened? There is some sharing of thoughts, and what happened because of this? So there is some resemblance that we are seeing. So tribals are also practicing some system, some culture of the mainstream society. So we are going to discuss about different examples there. And next one here is human genetics. So human genetics here, in this human genetics, we are going to discuss especially about effect. So effect of what? Effect of environmental factors. Effect of environmental factors on physical traits. It is about effect of environmental factors on physical traits. So we can also talk about here inheritance. Inheritance of traits. So inheritance means that we are getting from our parents. So from parents we are getting some characters, that is called as inheritance. So inheritance of traits from parents to offsprings. And we are also going to talk about relationship. Okay, relationship between different generations. I think you might know about this. So if you are having a habit of biting nails or piercing your lips or walking style or your hands or your fingers or your legs, so walking style, etc. Sometimes your mother or your father may be said like, so your walking style it is like your great grandfather. So your ears look like him, your eyes look like him, your mouth or your lips look like them. So here nothing but here in this human genetics, yes, there will be some relationship that will be carried on by the generation to generation. So here we can say, yes, there will be some relationship between the different generations. So that are the things that we are going to study in this human genetics. Okay, so this is about especially this cultural, it is about this physical anthropology in detail. And now let us try to see the second one, that is about cultural anthropology. So in this cultural anthropology, again we will be having different fields. Okay, first of all, let me erase this. Just 2 seconds. So in this cultural anthropology, here we have to know about different dimensions. So what are those dimensions? So first one here is we need to know about prehistoric. Okay, we need to know about prehistoric archaeology. We need to know about paleontology, ethnology, social anthropology, economic anthropology, religion, art, music, and folklore. So these are very important. So if we're talking about this prehistoric archaeology, so in this prehistoric, yes, we need to go back to different eras. For example, you can talk about Paleolithic. Here in this Paleolithic, we have Upper Paleolithic, Middle Paleolithic, and as well as Lower Paleolithic. And also we can talk about Mesolithic. We can talk about Neolithic. We can talk about Chalcolithic. So here, especially in this prehistoric archaeology, we are going to study about use of tools. Okay, so this use of tools, they are mainly based on what work they are doing. So especially in this Paleolithic period, so people were hunters and gatherers. So at that time they used to have the weapons, that used to kill the animals, right? And in the Mesolithic, so there is some transition. So they started using microliths, or very small size weapons. And in the Neolithic, they started agriculture. So to conduct agriculture, to grow with agriculture, yes, they need some equipment, or say some weapons. So they started generating that. So here in this prehistoric archaeology, we are focusing on use of tools and how these tools had been changed from one period to another period, and how technology had been evolved. So we need to know that. And whenever we are studying about this use of tools, then we will get some sequence of culture. So how culture had been started changing. And next one here is paleontology. So paleontology, it is a simply study of fossils. And by studying the fossils, we can go with evolution of humans, how humans had been evolved. So in which layers were the fossil identified, and that layer which belongs to which era. So in this way, we will be having some connections, some links. And ethnology means, in simple words, it is a comparison. It is a comparison, and comparison of what? It is a comparison of culture. It will also called as cultural anthropology. And next one is ethnography. Ethnography, it is like a study of culture through direct and as well as indirect observation. So in ethnography, we will go for analyzing the data, and as well as we are comparing the data, and we will be coming to a conclusion. And next one is social anthropology. So in this social anthropology, man relation with the society. So we are going to study about man relation with society. So why we need to talk about the relationship between man and society? So how it is important? So as you all know, man is a social animal. Will you agree with me? Yes, right? So man is a social animal. So why I'm saying man is a social animal? Because man, he lives in groups. If you're talking about humans, and especially habitations of humans, they used to live together, and they share territory, they share common language, and they share common traditions. And even man, they involve in the social institutions. For example, you can talk about marriage as an institution. You can talk about family as an institution, and you can talk about government. You can talk about law, etc. So in all these areas, man is involving. And here, whenever man is involving here, that will helpful for cultural development, right? So this is about aspect of social anthropology. And what is this economic anthropology? So what we will study in economy, for example, we can study about production, we will study about distribution, we will study about trade, consumption of goods, etc. So here in this economic anthropology, we will be especially focusing on subsistence of life. So to continue the life, so what are the economic activities are done by the people? So how it has been changed? So how globalization, privatization had impacted humans now? So how trade used to be present in the older days? So especially we will be talking about different types there, and in those different tribes, so how the economic activities are going on. For example, you can talk about barter system, and now how this money which mainly impacted, and recent demonetization, how the people had been affected, especially these tribal peoples, and what is the impact of tourism, impact of government initiatives on these tribes. So all these things we need to know under this economic anthropology. And next one here is religion. Yes, religion plays an important role in the society. As you all know that man has a good relationship with the supernatural power. So man has good relation with this supernatural power. So why we are focusing on religion? Why here man believes a god? Because of some questions. There is no answer from the man. For example, why sun rises in the east? What is the reason for the existence of God? So what is the reason for the existence of moon? So why we get sunlight only in the morning but not night? Okay, so at that time, so in the earlier periods, so actually there were no answers for these type of questions from the people. Okay, so because of this, people, they started believing the god, they started about the existence of god. And sometimes, so people of this especially belonging to these tribals, they started worshipping the nature. For example, earth, for example, water, for example, fire, trees, etc. So we need to know about this religion, and this religion is one of the interesting topic in this entire anthropology. So there we will be studying about number of case studies and different tribal groups, so how they believe the religion and how they propagate the religion. So that will be one of the interesting topics that we are going to discuss in our future lectures. And next one here, it is regarding art, music and folklore. So especially people, whenever they are going for work, for example, either you can consider gathering of food, you can also think about agriculture and trade. So whenever they are doing, yes, they need some relaxation. Yes, even though now the modern man, they seek relaxation, and they will be opening their mobiles and listening to music, and they will also watch through some videos, TikToks, in shorts, YouTube, etc., and they will be recreating, or they will be helpful for the relaxation. And for recreations, sometimes modern man, they will be going to the nearby parks or nearby libraries and nearby some areas where he can get recreation. So earlier man, okay, so man in this Paleolithic period or Mesolithic or Neolithic period, they also sought to relaxation, and they adapted for art. For example, here people, especially the people from this upper Paleolithic period, they started painting. So earlier rock cut paintings they were present. For example, Bimbetka. Okay, and next one here is they started adapted to the natural and social environment, and they started singing songs. So whenever they started singing songs or music or folklore, that led to the transformation of that same information from one generation to another generation. So earlier, now we have schools, now we have universities, international schools, international universities, so they are teaching us. But earlier they used to have, they do not have any schools. So we had schools in our ancient period, but before this IVC, in this Paleolithic period, so they used to, there was nothing like schools, okay, for providing education. Yes, through this folklores, here parents, they used to teach the things to the children, and through this folklore, so they will be learning. Okay, so they asked as a medium of education at that time. So even now, especially I think if you have gone through this song, Bhimla Nayak title song, so there is one folklore. Okay, so that is the introduction about this Bhimla Nayak. So in the same way, the folklores are present, and because of this folklores, the knowledge that had been transmitted from one generation to another generation, right? So this is the importance of art, music, and folklore. Okay, so this is about this scope of physical and cultural anthropology. And now let us try to see about this approaches of anthropology. So in these approaches, we need to know about three approaches. So I will be writing here, don't worry. So those three approaches were, first one, it is principle of holism. First one is principle of holism, and second one is principle of relativism. Principle of relativism, and third one is principle of comparison. Principle of holism, principle of relativism, principle of comparison. So if you're talking about these approaches, it is very important, especially to understand the theories, which you can see in the paper 1, that too in chapter 6. To understand the theories, you have to know about approaches of anthropology. So unless and until you know these approaches, you can't understand those theories, how these anthropologists they went there, or ancient anthropologists, so how they came across the studies. So first one here is principle of holism. So here in this principle of holism, so anthropologists they will go for study of man in a holistic manner. In holistic manner means in all dimensions. So in all dimensions, in anthropologists they went for studying of man. This is about principle of holism. Principle of relativism is nothing but anthropologists they will study the man in the perspective of individual, or in the perspective of society, or in the perspective of culture, not in a holistic manner. So perspective at individual level is important, and that is studied in this relativism. For example, if you take a one group and if you are taking the group 2, so individuals in this one group and individual in this group 2, they do not have the resemblance. So here we have individual perspectives. For example, if you're talking about marriage, so my views may not be tally with your views, right? So this is about the relativism. So principle of relativism. And if you're talking about principle of comparison, so in this field work, especially whenever these anthropologists they are going to this tribal people and they are doing some field work, so they will be collecting data, and after collecting the data they will be going for analysis of this data and finally conclude this data. That mainly comes under this field work analysis. Okay, so field work analysis comes under this principle of comparison. So these are the three important approaches of this anthropology. And now let us try to talk about main branches of anthropology. As you all know, there are 4 important branches of anthropology. Okay, so those include, let me draw. So those 4 branches include socio-cultural anthropology, physical anthropology, archaeological anthropology, and as well as linguistic anthropology. So if you're talking about these 4 branches, so even when we are studying our anthropology, that is either paper 1 and paper 2, so we are going to study anthropology in these 4 dimensions. First one is socio-cultural anthropology, physical anthropology, archaeological anthropology, and as well as linguistic anthropology. In this social-cultural anthropology, we are going to study studies the culture and as well as society. We are going to deal with ethnography and as well as ethnology. So now let us have a discussion on one by one. So first one here is studies culture and society, right? So in this socio-cultural anthropology, especially we are going to study the culture and as well as society. So why we have to study this culture and as well as society together? Because this culture and society, they are inseparable. So we can't study them separately. So they are inseparable. So we need to go for study in culture and society together. So here we are going to talk about this ethnography. So ethnography means we are going to understand one culture at a particular time. Okay, we are going to study the culture at a particular time, that is ethnography. Ethnology means we are utilizing the data. We are utilizing the data of ethnographics and we are going for comparing and we are deriving certain regularities in human behavior. Ethnography, it is nothing but we are studying the culture at a particular time, and in this ethnology we are utilizing the data and we are comparing the data, and finally we are deriving certain regularities in the human behavior. So this is about the study of socio-cultural anthropology. So here you have to know about we are studying culture. For example, you can talk about marriage, you can talk about religion, you can talk about race. So all these concepts, that is chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5 of your paper 1, so that will come under this socio-cultural anthropology. And this one is physical anthropology. So in this physical anthropology we are going to talk about physical anthropology, we are going to talk about studying human as an organism. So we are going to study human as an organism. Human as an organism. And we are also relating this human with society and with the culture. As you all know, man is a social animal. Not only social animal, but man is also a biological organism. We are going to study about that. And we here in this physical anthropology, we are also going to understand the nature of man. We are going to understand the nature of man. So if you're talking about the scope of this physical anthropology, we are going to study human evolution. So how we are going to study this human evolution? Especially we are going to understand and we are going to study fossils. We are going to study fossils. And we are also going to observe living organisms. We are going to understand living organisms. And not only this, in this evolution we are also going to trace ancestry. We are going to trace ancestry of human species. So this is about this study of human evolution. And second important one here is we are also trying to trace ancestry of human species. I said earlier. And this one, yes, we are also going to study human variation. So how physical traits are differ from each other. For example, especially people who are living in tropical region, they will be having short nose. Okay, and people who are living in this temperate region or in the cool areas, they will be having long nose. So what is the reason behind that? So people who are living in this temperate region or this polar region, so they will be inhaling very cold air. So here in our nose we will be having nostrils and we will be having nasal hair. So whenever we are having a long passage, okay, to pass this cold air, so whatever the cool air we are breathing, that will be becoming warm, right? So because of this, in temperate regions people will be having long nose, in tropical region people will be having short nose. So here in this way we need to understand how physical traits are differing from each other. We can talk about nose, we can talk about ears, we can talk about face, okay, we can talk about skin color. So how it is differing, that will be studied in this human variation. And next one is man interaction with environment. Yes, here man's interaction with environment is very important, because based on that environment, so man's culture which had been changed. So here, in which environment people are present, so based on that we can understand nature of humans. For example, people who are living in these Eskimos, they do not get anger at all, because they will be living in a very bad conditions in a very cold area, so they do not waste the energy, okay, by fighting with the others. So whatever they have, they will be sharing with them. But if you see some tribal peoples, they are very much aggressive, okay. So we can also see some tribals or head hunters, right? So there is a very different, because of based on the environment where they are living. So here the people's interaction will be very much altered. And next one is genetic knowledge of blood groups. So here in this physical anthropology, we can also understand genetic knowledge of blood groups. For example, we have A, B, AB, and O blood groups. Apart from that, we will be also having rhesus factor, positive or negative. So we can also study these blood groups. And next one here is why we need to study about these blood groups. So we can also see some blood related disorders, for example thalassemia, etc. So in which tribal groups which type of blood disorders are commonly seen, and what are the relationship with the environment, and how it is genetically also progressing to the next generations. So what will be the impact of that so and so disease on their population, so whether that will going to extend this tribal group or not. So how can we address this? So what are the steps that can be taken by the government to protect those tribal people? So in this way here, genetic study is also very important. And next one here is, we need to know about the diseases, especially these tribal groups are living in some hilly areas. Okay, normally they seen in the hilly areas, but in the hilly areas now we are going for the developmental projects, we are going for the mining projects. So because of this mining, so what are the water bodies, they used to depend on their water sources. So because of releasing of waste into this water bodies by this mining agencies or mining companies or any companies, then what happened, that will leads to disease in these people. So whenever the diseases are rampant in this so and so population, then what happened, if there is no proper healthcare facilities, and whenever these people they are not coming outside for getting treated, then what happened, their population is in the verge of extinction. So we need to also focus on the disease, and especially in this tribal area, so there will be some wild animals will be there, and some mosquitoes, some viruses, etc., right? So how this monkeypox, for example, you can talk about monkeypox virus. As you all know, these tribal people, they depend upon the forest for their livelihood. So whenever they are coming into contact with the organisms which are having the, which are mainly acting as a host, for example, you can talk about monkeys, you can talk about bats, etc. So how they had been resistant, so whether there are any genes that are present in those bodies which is showing resistance or not, so we need to know this. So there are many reports saying that, so the tribal peoples, they will be having resistance to so and so virus. So we are also going to study about that. And next one is demographic studies. So in this demographic studies, we need to know about marriage. Okay, how the marriage is going. For example, they are endogamous or exogamous. Or for example, you can have to know about mating patterns and breeding. So we are going to know some interesting things regarding this demographic studies of this tribal people. And next important branch here is archaeological anthropology. So in this archaeological anthropology means nothing but it is a systematic retrieval and analysis of physical remains. So what are the physical remains or what are the fossils that we got? So we are going for systematic retrieval of those fossils, and we are also focusing on analysis of this physical remains, that is fossils. And by using these fossils, we can go for reconstruction of environment, culture, and as well as society. Okay, so here we can study about prehistoric population and as well as a historic population. And here we can also add one more dimension, that is evolutionary perspective. So how evolution has been done, so how the role of technology had been helpful for studying of those fossils. And we can also understand economy in generating process in those time, and we can also talk about evolution of culture. Okay, so we're talking about scope of this archaeological anthropology. So in this scope we can talk about reconstruction. So what is this reconstruction? especially in this reconstruction, we can study about origin. We can study about origin, not only origin but even evolution of humans. And next one is different cultures. So in this reconstruction, we can study about origin of people. We can talk about evolution, variation, and as well as difference of culture or difficulties of cultures. So actually, it has first appearance of humans and developing of writing. Okay, so we are going for developing of the change. So how the people had been evolved, and we are going for development in the writing as well. And next one is proto-historic and archaeological anthropology. So here, not only prehistoric and historic, but even we can also go for studying of proto-historic. And next one is reconstruction of way of life of ancient literary civilizations. So as example, we have some literary civilization which are ancient, like we can talk about IVC, Indus Valley civilization. In Egypt, we have Mesopotamian civilization, and we have some other civilizations as well. So we are also going to study about those civilizations: Mesopotamian civilization, Indus Valley civilization, Nile Valley civilization, etc. And next one here is we can also obtain information. Okay, so what are the reasons? What are the reasons for the threatening of the life of the people? So what led to extinction? So what might be the reason? So what might be the disease or present? What might be the some changes that they found in the environment that led to this extinction? For example, you can talk about natural calamities that happened at that time, and you can also think about this human action. So what human actions that led to the extinction? So this is about the scope of archaeological anthropology. And now let us try to talk about last branch, that is linguistic anthropology. So in this linguistic anthropology, what is this linguistic anthropology? First of all, we are going to study the study of speech and language. It is dealt with this linguistic anthropology. So linguistic anthropology, it deals with especially speech and language. So it studies primitive and as well as modern language. So if we're talking about the scope, so we have the different scope of this linguistic anthropology. So first and the foremost thing here is we can go for historical. We can go for historical. We can go for historical and as well as comparative study. So in this historical, we can also think about emergence. We can think about emergence of language. So how this language had been emerged in the early man. And next one is how it is different. That means divergence from one group to another group. So what are the dynamics? So what are the sounds they used to do? Okay, so that we are going to study in the context of culture. So we can also understand evolutionary development of language from the local language. So how this local languages had been came up. So as you all know, we have different wide varieties of languages. So in our constitution also we have official language, right? So here we need to know about the languages of these tribals and how this language had been evolved, etc. And we can also go for structural and as well as descriptive study. That means here we can also go for phonetic study, phonetics, syntactics, and next one as morphemic study. So in this phonetic and syntactic and morphemic, we are going for analyzing the sounds. We are going for searching for the grammar and as well as meaning. So especially language is very important, because if any anthropologist who want to do field work and if you want to go to those native areas of these tribes, so they have to know at least some basic idea regarding the language you are using. And next one here is theoretical linguistic. So in this theoretical linguistic, we need to think about how language works. And in socio or ethno, so here we are going to understand how speech varies from one group to another group. And next one is ethnosematics. So in this ethnosematics, we need to think about how language and culture, they are interrelated. How language and culture, they are interrelated. And in this psycholinguistic, so here we are going to learn about language learning and as well as quality of language you're using, etc. And this one is in applied field. So especially if you want to promote education in this tribal people, is tribals, they have their own tribal language. So how can we teach in this English or any other regional language? So we can't. So if you want to teach, there is no proper textbooks, because there is no proper textbooks in those tribal languages. So here we need to come up with designing of any program, and we need to prepare some aids in education programs, and we need to develop some methods for the study of unwritten languages. So most of the times here tribals, they will be having their own tribal language, but those languages do not have a proper written script. Okay, so in that tribal languages, we need to face problem for the promotion of education. So for those, we need to come up with some digital aids, or we need to prepare some aids, education programs, and specially designed programs for the promotion of education in those areas. So this is in detail about this today's topic. So today's topic we discussed about scope, physical anthropology, cultural anthropology, approaches of anthropology, and we also done with main branches and their scope. So I hope you understand this topic, and I try to explain in a very clearly and in a layman terminology. So by this I'm concluding. Thank you so much.